Blessed day, Earth family, soul family. Welcome back to another episode, Friday the 13th here in this Earth realm. What do you guys think? Martial Mystic Daily Series 2026 here in February, Friday the 13th. Fearless Friday, no less. What are your thoughts? What are you afraid of? So here's some questions that I had for you on Fearless Friday. What fears you? Who fears you? Why does it fear you? Who does it fear? Would you like something to fear you? Do you want someone to fear you? Did it happen by accident? Was it intentional? And what do you fear? And is that what you desire? This goes back to the concept of relationship. What's the relationship that you desire? So, what we're postulating today is that we've been practicing division for far too long. And if we come to the awareness and the acceptance of that, how can we change it and start on a pathway towards unity? Have we had enough pain from practicing division that we have the impetus, the motivation, the desire towards unity? Do you desire unity or do you value fear more? So I'll just let you know what what we're talking about today is preserving civility. That may look different to different types of people. What does it look like to preserve civility? This image, I used AI to come up with this image. Let me know what you think. I think I shared this before, but we're going to look at it today because we're talking about on the US soil, we haven't really seen the ramifications of war on an ongoing basis or long-term bloodshed since what, the Civil War? We know that overseas in many other countries, there's been a lot of bloodshed, ongoing bloodshed. However, recently we have seen killings in the streets and calls for abolishing the Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE. And in this week, we've been talking about the comfort zone, the growth zone, the panic zone, and where and how could the passionate disruptive zone come into dysregulation? And is it possible that many of the people that we're seeing on TV are dysregulated in some form or fashion? We have to look at regulation and dysregulation if we want to understand wellness and mental health. Regulation is the idea where, if we're talking about mental regulation, mental health regulation, the psychology and the emotional landscape is brought to an awareness for conscious action, and the the mod- monitoring and modifying of behavior. And when we point to this internally, we look at how mental health regulation produces positive consequences for wellness. If you bring down your internal stress and harmonize conflict with stressors, internal or external, Resolution Thursday, we look at external, then we can bring down stress levels, we can sleep better, and we can have a more fulfilled, meaningful life. What we've seen recently is that the body and life itself is feeble when we're all divided and not in uh, unity or in union. So the path for civility for me has been has has come from a long road of disagreement and the avoidance of conflict. We've looked previously at the violence spectrum and how on one end of the field or the spectrum you have avoidance of conflict, and the other end you have um, the aggression and outright violence. And this week we've been looking at how that is associated with our uh, zones of comfort, growth, and stress, our dysregulated signs, our emotional dysregulation signs. We looked at feelings and needs yesterday in Resolution Thursday. And what we also looked at was this um, color coded zone from being well and green to angry, crying, panicked, screaming, and red. So as we progress through this week, yesterday we looked yes and we've had a meditation that I shared on Wednesday and Thursday about looking at the difficult things internally that produce possibly anxiety, the yellow zone, agitation, yellow zone, or angry or crying in the red zone. But finding that space of peace and unity with the divine so that we can circulate internal conflict as we grow and as we want to evolve and contribute to the world. Qigong theory tells us that circulation is needed, or else stagnation starts to produce um, symptoms of illness. And so we have the fact that we are in this earthly realm, in these earthly suits, but we're also spiritual travelers and tourists. So how do we navigate and resolve the fact that our spirit is sometimes it's you feel trapped in your earthly body, but yet now you have in this earthly realm all these duties, responsibilities that you have to adhere to and show up for, but your spirit wants to achieve ultimate peace and union with the Tao because that's where it comes from. The Chinese call it sansai or sanbao. The three main powers, heaven, man, and earth, of the large universe, where this is the growth cycle, where you have Wu Ji, ultimate source, eternal bliss and peace. Tai Chi brings out the large forces and energies of heaven, man, and earth in the large universe. And in the small universe, we also have that microcosm, heaven, earth, and man. So these three energy centers need to be balanced. And this week we've been talking about, I even introduced that meditation, talked about the concept of mental massage for internal and external conflict. Like I said, I have taken this long road towards resolution and walking through the fear of conflict, where for me it was disagreement. I had to learn how to look at my avoidance and how to act differently from avoidance. And it was like a new diet or a new workout regimen. Stop avoiding and engage, which goes back to Tai Chi Chuan. How do you engage in a positive, well-meaning way without double weighting? We talked about that last week. When you meet force with force, you're likely to go through to go into a head-on collision. But we want to be able to meet conflict with balance and skill and regulation, self-regulation. So I had to get out of my comfort zone and improve my comfort zone. We talked about that on Monday, expanding the comfort zone. Tuesday, I introduced a movement series about expanding the comfort zone. And I had to get out of that, stop avoiding, and learn to engage, especially if I wanted to have a lifelong partner. So disagreement turned into talking and interfacing and interacting. But then I learned, well, I didn't know how to discourse. I kept practicing discourse of division, and that didn't help to produce peace or harmony. So then I had to learn about internal discourse for external discourse. I had to listen to myself. And Tai Chi movement helped me listen to myself. In Tai Chi, we have the internal energies that are cultivated for self listening, understanding, connection, and support. Because Tai Chi training also strives for that balanced personal self unity to live and move through the world in a balanced way. Understanding how to move from center, understanding external ranges of motion, and understanding psychological bubble, emotional bubble, You see a square and you see a circle here being round and flexible and pliable when I need to be round, or being square, rigid, and strict when I need to be strict. And then how to articulate that for myself and for those around me. And these energies of listening, ting jing, understanding, dong jing, are what we learn in Tai Chi Chuan. And this also tracks with TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, in preventing illness. In the interpersonal realm, the illness symptom comes up as more division, more conflict, escalation into violence. So, how do we preserve and preserve civility and prevent escalation of conflict and violence in this world? I keep saying this, technology is rapidly advancing, they say, but ancient technology already exists to help us. Should we be open and look at our social conditioning and our brainwashing, which I needed to do? I needed to see that the constructs I had in my mind were of right and wrong thinking, hero versus villain. And I had to see how that was just perpetuating and escalating conflict, violence, and division. Without knowing, I was brainwashed to think in terms of conflict, division, and escalation. And the English language lends itself well to that. But I kept studying nonviolence. I kept with meditation, contemplation. The meditation that I proposed laid out a pathwork of reflection, mourning, repair, and learning. And so as a person seeking self mastery and self cultivation, this is the path that has helped me through fear. And these are the skills that have helped me through the fear of disagreement, the fear of conflict. And what's notable is that this path has given me a way of looking at myself in a way that I can accept and still improve. Accept the times that I've fallen short of my standard. I've overshot the mark, and being able to live with myself, accept myself, and still improve. And that's the world. Can we accept the world and make those small changes to improve? We talked about yin and yang spirit on Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, cultivating yin and yang spirit. How the yang spirit, represented by the white, is inflammatory. It's more masculine. It can be masculine. Um, it's more yang, and the the yin energy is compassion. It's listening, reflection. So those have to be balanced, and mental flexibility can be founded upon one's ability to maintain flexibility in the mind moment by moment. So in the world, how do we move towards unity? How do we find our way back to? Yesterday we talked about sacred conflict. How do we find our way back to divinity, back to a place and a space where we can all see each other as one soul family? If we can see ourselves as one soul family, well, then we create the conditions for preserving civility. See, it's purported, if you look in the media, that civility will come through surveillance, laws, but we can self govern and we can produce civility for ourselves. We just need the education, we just need to be exposed to the education that'll set the foundation where civility is naturally preserved. And that's the art of doing without doing, creating the conditions where the outcome is happening, not by force, not by coercion, by natural giving, natural contribution, educated contribution and giving. And in our February's poetry, we looked at how don't be afraid of the initiation of a thought. Don't be afraid of lack of civility, Javi. Be afraid of the delayed perception of civility. Be afraid of your ability to preserve civility when it's lost. Look for the opportunities to preserve civility. Look for the opportunities to promote balance and the mindset where humankind is one soul family, one energy of the large three powers, all connected to one grand divinity, one grand eternal space. Because if we can find that in ourselves, once again, we can then preserve civility. So let me know what you think. You know, that's the vision, the hope, the idea, the lens of the martial mystic, the fight of no fight, doing without doing, and uh, reducing enemy images. Hope you can jive with that. Um, Try to embrace the woo, and may your chi flow smoothly.